Know this. Introducing the original Blood Clot podcast, not players. Soothing semantic. Special dedication. All the way from New York. Boom. Yeah, man. SWOT semantic. Yeah, me know. Boom. Soothing semantic. Yeah, me know. Big ups to the man now. Soothing semantic.
On another episode of Soothing Semantics, I'm your host, Rafi Pinsky. Today, we have Stefan on the show. How's it going, brother?
It's going great, man.
Is it Stefan or Stefan?
Stefan.
Appreciate it. Beautiful. Okay. Stefan, how's it going, man?
Dude, it's going excellent today.
Happy fucking Sunday.
Yeah, man.
Happy post-Halloween.
It's November 1st.
It is. You think COVID's going to be over soon?
No.
I just don't know if the election thing is a factor, because everyone seems to think so. But I feel like the election is a COVID of its own.
Exactly.
It's a pandemic.
That's what I'm waiting to be over,
Yeah,
honestly.
It's an absolute comedy show.
I'm ready for the end of the year. I think everyone's ready for next year and what next year holds.
It can't get any worse, right?
Dude, don't say that.
Right. I think everyone's thinking that, but it definitely can.
It definitely can.
We just have to brace ourselves.
Remember Kobe died at the beginning of the year?
Yeah.
That was the first omen.
This is literally a series of it's a series of unfortunate events, but it's also a Final Destination movie.
Well, technically, we are all on a Final Destination.
It's insane, dude. It's wild.
We are the brotherhood of death. In fact, I didn't mention this to you earlier, but probably one of the number one things that I think about is death. Dying somehow comes up for me daily, usually on purpose, though. Cultivating an awareness of death has been said to be one of the greatest ways to have an appreciation for being alive, to improve one's experience of being alive.
Mm. I think about this too. I think about it a lot. I saw a quote. I've seen this several times on social media. You're going to die one day. How are you not running toward your dreams? Mm-hmm. You only get one chance. Mm-hmm. We have this concept of the afterlife. We don't know if it's true. I would like to believe it is, but who knows? Without absolute proof of that being the case, why in the world would I not do the things that I want to do?
Steve Jobs says it in that famous Stanford commencement speech that he has. Knowing that he's going to die, I'm trying to remember the exact quote. Basically gave him the confidence to never felt like he had anything to lose, because we don't. Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. Everything that we think about, whether it's, how do I look on social media? How do I look in front of the girl that I'm going to talk to for the first time? Or, should I go after this new business? Should I become a realtor? Should I move to a new place? All the things that we think about that we might consider as being like something that we care for getting wrong or messing up. Mm-hmm. None of that stuff matters in the end. We die.
So true. It's so rational, dude, but so many people don't have that rationale to be able to put all the bullshit aside and say, why does it make a difference ultimately? But we have all of these things that cloud our judgment. It's just so funny how in actuality we're going to die, dude. It's so it's such a, and it's not something that it's something that I think scares most people. I don't think it's easy to say. I mean, I haven't been in a position where, I've come close to dying a few times, to be honest. Where have you been close to dying, Rafi? I've been. It was during the military. There were a few instances where I almost lost my life. Thank God I didn't, and I'm still here. And we'll go into it at some point. But that really took away the fear of death, ironically. Mm-hmm. And I can't say that if there was something, God forbid, some sort of disease or anything like that, hopefully, God forbid it doesn't happen, but I don't feel afraid to die.
Yes.
And I think the more fulfillment you have in life and the more you do, and the more action you take, the less of a fear you'll have, because if this is the end, it's been a good ride. It's been a good 26 years.
That's a great philosophy.
Right.
To expound on that, there's this one quote, one of the surest signs of a life well lived is being okay with dying when death comes, not being surprised or being okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another one that I'd like to think about. When death comes, not just not being afraid of it, but being okay with it. Are we living right today through our actions? That if death comes, you don't say, wait, I need one more year because I'm about to do this thing. I'm so close to doing it. I'm so ready. That's what I want to avoid at all costs.
But like you said, it doesn't even matter at that point. Like you get that extra year, but you're dead. I mean, like, like how do you? It's a paradox. I think.
Yes.
Because you want that extra year to accomplish more, but you're accomplishing more to die anyway. So does it really?
Wow, very paradoxical in that case. Yeah,
so does it really make a difference ultimately?
No, take me now.
You know what I mean? But as so long as I mean, if you feel that you'll make an impact on the people around you, being given that extra year, possibly that extra year could be worth it. I think if you've had a fulfilling life up until now, that extra year may not make such a difference. But I guess it's subjective. It's interesting.
Rafi, I want to take this chance now that we're kind of on the subject. One of the things that I've focused so much of my thinking time on, my journaling time, just thinking time, is what kind of life do I want to live? And really thinking about how big of an impact does one want to have, kind of like forecasting into the future.
That was a great.
Thanks.
Well done. I'm going to edit that part out. Go on.
Really? Yeah, really?
No, never mind. Go on.
So as we like forecast into the future and we think, okay, man, not everyone does. I realize that not everybody does, longer forecast, but it's just something that I'm drawn to doing. I'm drawn to looking 10, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, because I feel like a lot of the decisions that I think about now, I kind of try to always think of, where does this take me in 10 years or 20 years? Even with a new relationship, I think long term as well. I'm like, 20 years from now, what does this look like? And to not get too deep or too personal on something that not many people care about, just personal life. But there are certain things, like if you're in a relationship, you see red flags, like 10 years, 20 years, those red flags are like, those are big things that come up later anyways. One of the main things that comes up is impact. How much impact do I want to have? Do I want to have this? These are one of the unanswerable questions. Is it better to have the simple life of, what we see as being more traditional? Or, do we want to go to the other end where it's massive impact, where you're reaching millions of people, where you're trying to touch the lives, be of service to as many people as possible, or just a great amount of people? Bill Gates has devoted his life now to basically the uplifting of people in really disenfranchised places. Tony Robbins has dedicated a lot of his life not just to people that he serves through his work, but also on feeding people who don't have enough food. Mm-hmm. Tim Ferriss is getting into donating money and stuff for psychedelic work because of his personal impact with psilocybin, and then what he knows that can bring to people that are suffering from PTSD.
I didn't know this, by the way. I didn't know Tim Ferriss was a psychedelic fan.
Yeah.
I didn't know this.
He talks a bit about psilocybin, and he's got a recent episode with Esther Perel where he talks about some childhood trauma and how, certain psychedelics, one of them being ayahuasca, which we were talking about earlier, also something that helped him kind of do the healing, bring him to a new place. And Tim is actually a guy that I've followed for a long time, really have looked up to him as well. And I can notice, dude, in the beginning of his podcast, he was so left brain science, still kind of like this, who he was whenever he started, like now over 6 years ago, I think. And listening to him do podcasts today, I can hear the shift in his spirituality, being more open to it. And he talks about how you couldn't even say, anything, meditation, the universe, anything that was woo-woo, the woo-woo people, oh, you're a hippie. And that's something that so many people, I think, reject because they don't want to get infected by it, because it's going to infect their thinking. with this like lower level of thinking, spirituality. Excuse me.
Can I let me interject for a second.
Please.
I was one of those people. It's funny. I used to look at this whole idea of psychedelics and the spiritual, and I grew up a religious Jew, mind you. So I always had the spirituality, but it was more of this grounded, your neighbors are religious, you go to synagogue, you pray, you go to Jewish school, yada, yada. And there's depth to it, don't get me wrong. But this is a different kind of spirituality where there is no religion.
Yes, right.
Everyone connects no matter who you are. And I have felt as a younger person that this was somehow, like you said, it's like this lower level thing. A bunch of hippies or hipsters wearing, well, not hipsters, but hippies wearing this, wearing an elephant shirt with long dreads, walking through a forest. And to me, I just thought that was a homeless dude.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Especially growing up as a Jewish guy in a Jewish neighborhood, you kind of look down on that in a way. I'm not speaking for all people. This was my perception. And the older I get, the more I realize that those people have this connection to nature that I never really had.
Right.
I had this very urban city mentality where it was just about getting a good job or finding or opening a good business, having a family, and that's the end of it. There wasn't this depth that I now start to realize exists. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, totally.
So it's and I think it's so important for me, at least, to have both of those things, because I couldn't be the kind of person to be only spiritual, if that makes sense. But I also wouldn't want to be somebody that just has this business-minded focus where I wouldn't want to just be this business-oriented person that can't get to the spirituality of things. Because when you start to question what the point is of all of it, why do I need $1 million a year?
Right.
What's the point?
Right.
But if I can actually come to a spiritual understanding and like you mentioned, impact, well, if I make $1 million a year, what can I do with that? Is the $1 million the goal, or do I simply want wealth? What will the wealth give me? And if I can see that in a spiritual way, it's a lot more appealing and it has a lot more meaning.
Well, dude, people want to amass wealth. So I hear.
So you hear.
So I hear. No, I'll ask people, I'm like, how much money do you want to make? What's the reason that you want to make this amount of money? And a lot of times I hear something like, I want to create this legacy. I want to leave something behind for my kids. How many kids do we know that come from money and they end up getting fucked up? How many people that went to a private school? I went to a public school for high school, and I'm glad I did. I feel like everyone that I talked to that went to these private schools, there was already cocaine, and it was like college, but in high school, and people going home and doing crazy stuff. And I wasn't a saint, obviously, but I feel like it was another level of, I don't know, in a sense, like kids running the show and like just feeling almost like apathetic might be the wrong word, but really like no rules, no boundaries, really that exploration. So I don't even know if having money for your kids, I feel like ultimately it can corrupt kids. If they have a lot of money early on, they don't have to work for it. We know the value, the importance of having to work for money, and that makes one take care of one's money as well. It's so important.
That's also such a paradoxical conversation.
Yeah,
because it's such a hindrance in a sense to be raised in a wealthy home.
Yeah,
it can really fuck you.
Yeah, it can.
And as somebody who didn't grow up that way, I want to build generational wealth, but sometimes I stop myself and I'm like, that might not be good for my kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they grow up with a beautiful, clean home. They have a maid cleaning up for them. They're used to luxury.
Dude, imagine having a kid that was like, I don't wash dishes. We have a maid for that, don't we? And then you're like, hey, you got to wash dishes. I would hate to have that kid.
I can't. But that's but that is your fault, though.
That would be your fault.
That would be my responsibility. So I strongly believe, just knowing who I am, I would not allow my kid to talk that way because I'd be disgusted.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't know.
They would be respectful.
I just like, Dad, I don't do that. I don't do that, Dad. And I'm just like, well, you're going to do it, kid. You know what I mean? Like, so there's a pro and a con. I mean, this we can go. I'm not going to go off on a tangent much, but I do like what Kiyosaki says from Rich Dad Poor Dad, and he really just talks about the idea that poor people, from poor homes, they have a poor mentality. So I want my kids to have a rich mentality and a wealthy mindset, but I want them to be able to
understand scarcity.
Yes, and also to respect people that don't necessarily have it.
Right.
If they're if my son or daughter opens a business without my monetary assistance, they have God willing, I will become very successful in my endeavors, and I will instill that in my children, and they won't have to piggyback off of me, and I won't have to spoon feed them, but I don't want to give them monetary value necessarily, but I do want to give them a sense of confidence that they can do what they want to do, and that I'm perfectly fine with doing. That I want them to have.
Right, that's huge.
Huge. But at the same time, if my son or daughter opens a business and they hire someone to clean the office, it's vital that they treat that person with respect.
Oh, yeah, sure.
And most wealthy kids, I don't have a percentage, but many wealthy children, they feel better than, and they simply feel that they were born into this predicament they were born into.
Exactly.
And they're important.
It can't exactly. It's right. The ego corrupting the mind of somebody, especially someone young. The ego just takes over and says, I'm more important than this person because I have money. So you haven't been able to get to that level where you have an understanding of life. And that's one of the issues when like a child just gets too much information at once and they don't exactly know how to deal with it because they haven't been through enough of life or seen enough of life. I mean, us being older than we were when we were 21 makes a huge difference in our understanding of how we see things or how we interact with people, or how we can be extremely humble being next to somebody that has a lot or has a little. That's something that we cultivate with experience and understanding of life too.
Sure.
Right. And a child doesn't necessarily have that that luxury of time, of experience. So yeah, the ego corrupts people all the time, and people stay corrupted, of course, because they get into a bubble. One of the things I wanted to mention when you were talking inspired the thought. You got to get kids out to another country to see what it's like in the rest of the world. Like, get them out of the bubble. If you're living in a bubble, Cush Aventura, going to the nice school, driving in the nice car, get them out, or even take them to New York or take them to Israel, right?
So we do that actually.
Yeah.
We have this. I mean, you're Jewish, but you might not have grown up in that environment.
No, yeah, I didn't.
We have a thing, especially in New York. I mean, you have it all over the world. After high school, Jews will do a gap year, mainly in Israel. Sometimes they do it in different countries. I have a friend that went to a gap year program in Italy, actually, which is very cool. And you'll have some people that do that. Most people go to Israel for at least a year. Some people do several years. And they do this Jewish private school in essence. And this is an opportunity before college to live somewhere else, live out of their parents' house. And it's very beneficial to a lot of people.
Yes.
And I personally did it before the military. I gave it a shot. And it expanded my mind tremendously.
Right.
And I didn't have an easy childhood. I had a great childhood. Not an easy one, but a great one, I have to say.
Love it.
So, yeah, my grandmother is an incredible person, so I can't, it's as simple as that. I can't sit here and bitch and moan that I didn't have a good childhood, because I absolutely did.
Same.
I lacked money. We did not have money, but I had everything else. I really did. So, but other than that...
You were just talking about the gap year.
Oh, yeah. So the gap year, that was a very eye-opening experience, and it gave me... It opened my mind to doing different things other than the classic finish school, get a job, marry someone, white picket fence, golden retriever, yada, yada, yada. I really understood the importance of finding my own way, and I'm continuing to do that, and I think that gap year was a major foundation. So I completely agree with that. I think it's very, very important. Yeah,
getting people to reframe. And I mean, how many people can benefit from traveling even in their 30s, 40s, 50s if they haven't been to more than just the national parks, or which people should go to. I think we end up going to like cities and trying to do like other vacation stuff, or want to go to Europe. Nature is one of those great places to connect. Moving off the subject though.
But I wanted to, one more thing though, real quick, because we were talking about this. I love to travel. I don't do it nearly as much as I should though.
Okay, yeah.
The tough question is, when you're somebody that wants to be productive, and travel is so important, and leaving your comfort zone is so important, going to a different country and seeing how they live is so important. How do you know when to take off and say, okay, I've worked enough, I need to go and travel. I need to spend that month, those 2 months, those 3 months, That's, I think, this is something that's hard for me to do. And I'm trying to work on that balance, but right now in the current place I'm in my life, I have decided not to go and travel and vacation. For me, I'm in work mode.
Yeah.
And I want to be doing that for the next little while.
Yeah.
Until I have certain things that have been achieved. But it's hard. You get sucked in. Like, I like to work, so I know that if I start seeing some large successes, I'm not going to want to take off, because I'm going to be like, well, if I take off for a month, that's a month I could have been hustling.
That's right.
And then you get lost in the workaholicism of things, if that makes sense. You get what I'm saying?
Absolutely, man. I was in startups when I got out of college. I left college with a startup.
Right.
And I was like, I'm going to make millions of dollars before I'm even 30, so that then I can figure it out. Kind of like you put it off. You're like, I know that life is going to be so much better and easier if I have money earlier rather than later.
That's my mindset,
That's the mindset. It will keep you from doing things that you probably should do.
Right.
Not because you won't go do it, it's because you won't want to later. There are certain things that right out of college, I was like, I really want to do this, this, and this. I'll give you an example. I wanted to go on this thing called the Yacht Week, which is just like booze cruise, but on yachts in like Croatia. You know, I came across it in college. I'm like, oh, this would be so cool. Today, even if somebody invited me to go on this Yacht Week thing, it's like house music, EDM, you know, very frat stuff that I'm not exactly into today. And things evolve, so you might not have the same interest down the line that you're putting things off for. So, you know, I make that as an example. It's a cheesy example. I almost don't like using it. But it still holds true. We don't know who we're going to be later on when we're 30 or 35 or even 40, because we can put it off and off, you know, farther and farther. So when we don't get those things done, like the chill travel or whatever it is, sometimes they just never get done, or they'll never get done in the space that, you know, is kind of open for you at that time or in the moment.
How do you know, man? That's the fuckery of it all, because I think it just depends on who you are. It depends what your priorities are. Because every day I spend working, I could be spending in a beautiful country exploring and learning about different cultures. But every day I'm in a country exploring and learning about different cultures, I could be building a life for my family and not have to stress in my 30s and 40s and 50s.
Right.
So it's so difficult. And I think ultimately there's no right or wrong answer.
That's right.
You just have to come to terms with yourself and say, what is most important? Is traveling right now the absolute, or is working hard now so I have more and hopefully stress less and then travel? And it's hard, because I want both, man. I wish I was wealthy right now and I could just travel the world and everything would be blissful and everyone's like, well, yeah, Rafi, so do we. Like, okay, great. But my conclusion for me is that I'd rather put the work in earlier, so when I'm married and have a few kids, work doesn't have a control over me.
Yeah.
I can go and at 4:00 in the afternoon pick up my kid from school, pick up my 8-year-old daughter from school and take her on a fun little outing because I have the finances to do so, and money doesn't have control over me, hopefully. And that's something I have to be conscious of. And I can go to my kid's soccer practice and do all those things. But
you're thinking far into the future, man.
I do that, man.
I know. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm a man that likes to think into the future, for sure.
But that's what
you'll never know, right?
It really stumps me, man, because I think about it and I see people going on vacations now and going on these trips, and I'm like, maybe I should be doing that too. But then I'm like, no, I don't. I feel like I need to do what I'm doing.
There you go. That's your answer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard though, dude. It's really hard.
One thing that came up that I absolutely love, I think about it, I just, you know, kind of a criticism about America. In Israel, exactly, they take a gap year. Not only do they take a gap year, but they work, save up, travel for like a year or 2 years, depending on how much money you saved up, and then you go to college. So people are going into college at like 25.
Yes.
And you have so much more of an understanding of who you are, maybe what the world needs, and where you could be useful. I think that's a really great trajectory, other than the out of high school, into college, out of college, into work, and more work.
That's America.
That's America.
Yeah, and
we're a machine.
Oh yeah,
we are a machine, like a capitalist machine. Unfortunately, I just wasn't aware enough. I'm gonna raise my kids differently. I was not aware enough that there were all these alternative routes, in a sense, because you really just thought of. I just knew the next step after high school was I got into a college. I got into Florida State, and I applied to like 3 colleges, got into 2. And I was like, all right, I got the next step figured out. Got to college, didn't really know what I wanted to do. But that was kind of, I knew he was just like, okay, this is the next step. And at the end of college, knew a lot more. I knew that I didn't want to necessarily just get a corporate job or something. That's why I chose to go into the startup route. But it's this trajectory that is laid out that everybody seems to thinks that they have to follow it, right? And so it's great to get that, we were talking earlier about, how money can corrupt kids. And if you take them out of where their bubble is and bring them to other places, they can get a better sense of the world and not let their ego run away with an inflated self of importance just by having more money than somebody else and thinking that you're inherently more valuable or more important than other people. It all ties together.
100%. It's weird, man, because we talked about Israel. I lived there for a few years, so I see the difference. America has, and this all comes down to what your essence is. Are you a more work-driven person? Are you a more family-oriented? I don't care about money. I'll live, as long as I have enough, I'm good. And enough is relative, but it's subjective. Yeah. But enough meaning wealth is of no importance to me. So in a country like Israel, I can say without question that Jewish people generally care about finances. It's just ingrained in us. It just is, man. I don't care if it sounds like. People are like, yeah, they sure do. We do. We value education, and a lot of us want to make money. It is what it is. In Israel, Israeli Jews, as opposed to American Jews, they don't have the means to make as much money, even if they wanted to. It's much harder in that country to make the kind of money that American Jews can make. It's also a newer country. American Jews have been building generational wealth from other countries and then came here and continued. Some didn't. Some came with nothing. Many came with nothing, but it's easier to make money here. It's a capitalist society, and in Israel, it's a lot more socialist. So, with that being said, I think Israelis that haven't left Israel and prefer to stay there are the kinds of people that they don't care if their car looks like shit. They don't care if they live in a little dinky home. They enjoy the little things. They enjoy the little moments. Yeah, and there's the one thing I love about Israel is the sense of community. They have this powerful family environment where a random person will invite me to their house. They have no idea who I am. They have no idea if I'm who, I could be a threat to them. They don't know, but I'm Jewish, they're Jewish. They go, hey, come to our house for Sabbath dinner. That very, very rarely happens in America. People will do it, but not to the extent that they'll do it there. Not so freely. Yeah. They're just there for you, and we always used to joke about this. All my American friends that have been there and done the gap year. In America, if you drop dead on the side of the road, someone will probably come to your aid eventually, but don't be surprised, especially in New York, if a couple of people just walk right by you. Yes. They'll assume you're sleeping. They won't know. There's 1.5 million. There's millions of people. Oh, okay. Maybe he's sleeping. He's drunk. Who knows? In a place like Israel, they'll run right away. They'll grab you. They'll see what's going on. They want to make sure you're okay.
Dude, in a lot of places.
Right.
A lot of places other than America. America's weird.
Oh, it's not just Israel. I don't know a lot of those other countries.
But America's weird. America's very weird in that respect. That's why people are, upset with us. People are, I don't know, we're getting extremely corrupted.
We're selfish, though. We're a selfish country.
Deeply selfish.
We all come. We're a melting pot of people that we're all in it for our own gain. We're here to make a lot of money. We're here to build this American dream for ourselves. So the one massive thing Americans lack is that idea of community, and we have it to some degree.
Yeah, unless if you're in a small town, if you're in a place like, I was watching when David Letterman was interviewing Dave Chappelle.
I didn't see it.
He's like back in the town in Ohio where he grew up.
Okay.
And that's a small town. The community's tight there. Everyone will be, friendly, and like South Florida isn't the South, but around the South, you say hi to people are saying good morning, and with their accents. hey, good morning, and blah blah blah. People are nice. You know, you go up across places in America. I really try. I try to make it a point to not ever talk in absolutes or generalizations about America or anything, because we're caught up, of course, in the perception of what we understand. To say like people are this way today is a disservice to so many people that aren't.
Right.
Right.
Beautifully said.
Thanks. Yeah.
It was, dude. It was awesome. Yeah. Okay. Doesn't have to be complicated. It was simple, but I loved it. Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. What should we move on to? Well, we were talking about money. How much money is enough? We were talking about generational wealth. That's how we got on the kids. That's how we landed in Israel. How much money does somebody really need to be happy?
Oh, that's a good one. So for me, so the thing for me is, for a large percentage, a large portion of my teenage years and my early 20s. Well, no, in my early 20s, money started to become very important to me.
Mm-hmm.
But in my teenage years, it wasn't important. I mean, I valued work. I was a waiter. I was working when most of my friends weren't, because I needed to in order to really do the things my friends were doing.
Cool.
My grandmother she would give me some money here and there when I was a lot younger.
Yeah.
And I just knew if I wanted to do anything fun, like I wanted to go take a flight somewhere,
right,
I would have to work for it. And so I understood the value of money. I wasn't so fixated on making a ton of it. I did care, don't get me wrong. I did enjoy seeing the cash, because at the time we weren't getting Venmo and Quick Pay and all that. I would receive dollars, which was awesome. I just loved the idea of just getting $100 bill or $120. Of
course.
Loved it. And I was a young kid. For a guy in his teens, I was making solid money. So as time progressed, I noticed how so many people are in a predicament where money controls them. And what I mean by that is, you can be a wealthy person where money controls you, and you can be a poor person where money controls you. The difference between a poor person and a rich person in that situation is that when you're wealthy and money controls you, it's a lot easier to fix. Meaning, it can be an extremely difficult habit to change, to lay off the brakes, to stop working as hard. A very difficult thing to do, but it's definitely a better place to be than, if I don't make more money, I will be evicted. I don't have enough money to pay for my family's food. I'd much rather be in the wealthy person's stance to say, my wife says, sweetie, we have enough money. You're working too hard. You're not spending enough time with us, right? And for a lot of entrepreneurs, they're workaholics. It's an addiction. They love the work. So that's hard, but nonetheless, for me, I'd still rather be that guy. You know what I mean? Because whatever arguments I'm having with my spouse are probably not going to be as bad as, sweetie, we're literally going to be on the street if we don't do something. You get what I'm saying? I feel a lot weaker. I don't feel like a strong provider. So for me, it's so important to me to build a strong financial, essentially to build strong.
We're men. It is ingrained in us, literally ingrained in us, that if we're not making enough money to provide, then our self-worth as men drops.
Hypergamy, dude.
What is it?
Hypergamy. Familiar with hypergamy?
No. What's that?
So hypergamy is a term that I learned a few years ago, actually, at a bar.
Okay.
This bartender taught it to me, and it's the concept that women tend to date or marry upward of their social class.
Sure.
And this is something that has been common since the beginning of time. Women obviously want a healthy-looking guy, ideally. They want a guy who's fit. They want all these things. But that's not the absolute priority to most women. It's much more important that a man has himself figured out. He's driven, he's focused, he's stable, and she is confident that this man can take care of her and her children, and she won't have to worry that on some random day everything will go to shit. And as men, even if a lot of us can't accept this and aren't willing to admit it, I think we all subconsciously know how important it is. And to kind of just cut all the bullshit out of it, money is vital. It doesn't mean that we need to make tons of it.
Correct.
But when we do have a large surplus of it, we have a lot more options. We feel very, very confident. You know, I can say for myself, you feel like a powerful person. You feel like a man. You feel like you've done your job. You're in a position where you can find a suitable mate and provide for that suitable mate. And then if you want to take it a step further and you build a strong body and you're strong physically, that's another thing. So you can protect you and your family financially, create a home for them, give them good education, put clothes on their bodies, feed them, and you're also in peak physical shape where if something happens, someone threatens your children or your wife, you'll take care of it. And those things are just, so many men don't have even one of those things. And then on top of that, you can build, strong mental stability. And when you have that versatility, you are a very, very small percentage of the male population, because most of the male population has maybe one of those things, almost never has all three. And at a young age, if you can build that and come to that realization and then continuously build on it and build on it and build on it, you'll still have setbacks. Your shit will still stink in some shape or form, but far less than your average person. I think this is an accurate statement. So, it's just to go simply back to money. Money is of importance to me simply because that will never be. I never want the topic of conversation in a relationship or marriage to be, hey, you can't afford it. We can't go on that vacation, Rafi, because you can't pay for it because we don't have the funds. I never want that to ever be a conversation. Period. And whatever.
So, Rafi, I just have to point out, you are so long-term focused. Like, a lot of this, what you've been talking about is like spouse situations and like the household, which you have to be internally mature to be thinking in that manner in the first place, which is why it makes so much sense that you want to go like work mode. And, your priority is, instead of the travel, like we said, you want to be working because you've already got the long-term vision clear in your head, and you know that, like you said, you want to avoid situations where money is a problem or you're not even able to attract a suitable or the woman that you want, because she's looking for somebody that can actually provide for her. I mean, I feel like that. I was reading Think and Grow Rich again. It's one of
you read it more than once?
I'm reading it for the second and a half time or so.
That's awesome.
That was
phenomenal book, dude.
Quick tangent.
What a phenomenal book, guys! If you haven't read this book, read this fucking book. Phenomenal book. It was the one of the first two books that I read when I got out of college and I started reading. And I know we had talked about maybe touching on reading more. Was never reading books, and it is the single most transformative habit that I've taken on in my entire life, other than meditation, to inspire both maturity, the acquisition of knowledge, and inspire confidence, all sorts of things. Is the number one tool that I've found has improved my stake as a person, not just a man, a human being. Because in a book lies distilled wisdom, usually somebody's best thoughts, hopefully, that have ideally stood the test of time as well. You're not reading things that just came out unless they're really good. I love that. Stood the test of time.
Yeah.
I see that in certain Jewish religious texts. There's a lot of them, to be honest. I'm not going to speak for other religions, but there's some books that were written a few thousand years ago that are still applicable today.
We're still going through the same things.
Yeah,
literally,
just in the technological age, but they're all applicable for the most part.
Bro, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. That's something if they were dealing with that then, we're definitely dealing with it now, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Which is wild.
Oh yeah.
People aren't so different. I think about that one all the time.
It's much fucking worse now, dude, because it's so much more accessible.
Yeah.
Whoa, just in a different country now.
Dude, you just slide in the DMs, quick snap. I'm just kidding. No. The rereading Think and Grow Rich, one of the chapters is about when you consummate man and woman or partnership, he basically says, Napoleon Hill asserts that everything that a man does and this is completely focused on men, written in like 1913 or whatever. He's like, everything that a man does is for basically the acquisition of a partner, or for sex. Literally, he says for sex. And it got me thinking of it, and I'm like, a lot of what I do in my entire life has literally revolved around being a man that could attract a woman, whether or not I wanted to specifically go and attract a woman. Becoming that man has been so important, in part because one of the things that I think I've craved the most, even since teenage years or young age, is a really good partner, companionship. Like, I've known that is one of those things that I do want in my life.
Sure.
Dude, imagine how shitty we would be if we were just doing it for the boys. We would be slobs, we would be disgusting, we wouldn't care. We'd be like, whatever.
Just women help us level up, dude.
Women are the key driver for so much success.
Yes, dude. This is why we build bridges and why we murder each other, why we go to war.
Yo, literally.
It's literally like, I am a better soldier than you. And only look at these old medieval movies. It's all about attracting this beautiful woman. We go above and beyond. It's insane, but they help us level up.
Facts.
Like,
Facts.
They come into your house and it looks like shit. They go, what is this? Why do you have this and this
Seriously.
in the bathroom? Clean up, and this
first thing I see, or first thing I say if I ever go over like somebody's place and it's messy, I'm like, oh, you don't have a lot of girls here.
Yeah, it's so true. It's so true. This is we need. Yeah, that's the clearest thing. Women, I think, overall are much more organized than we are. Mm-hmm. Okay, I'm not going to speak for everybody. Some Obviously. Women are very messy. Some men are very organized. Okay, Correct. There are exceptions, but women have this. They're usually a lot cleaner than we are. I think, and as far as keeping an environment tidy, you're kind of looking at me funny. You disagree?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. No, I just don't want to say too much.
Why not?
Huh?
Why not?
Again, don't want to like make any generalizations or say anything.
Oh, fair enough. I do think overall this is the case.
I think so as well.
And I'm definitely complimenting women here.
Yes. So we know.
Right. I think it's pretty evident. But we definitely hopefully complement each other. If we are the right fit.
Dude, they'll say the same thing. If it weren't for them wanting to find an attractive mate, then perhaps women would also not care, and maybe, who knows though, man, they might actually like build this amazing society. They're like, we don't have men, we don't have to worry about this bullshit. Let's make things beautiful. Let's make things that work ecologically. Maybe they don't kill each other as much as we do.
Yeah, but I think they need the assertiveness of men. I do. I think they need the decision making of men. And you have women that listen to this like, excuse me, I'm a boss ass bitch. There are, but I'm saying like, I'm not here to generalize, but
Obviously.
I think we both have our things to share. I think men are more we can look at certain things, and it comes to, we have the old joke of going out to dinner, and the guy goes, sweetie, what do you want to eat? And she's looking at 20 different things and cannot figure it out. And this is something that I've experienced on several occasions.
Yep.
And on a deeper level, I think men can look at a circumstance and have an easier time evaluating it, and it might not even be the right decision. We're just faster to just do something, where they tend to be more, they think it through a lot more. They overanalyze it. Sometimes it ends up being smarter, and they're right, and they'll be like, well, we're always right. And then sometimes they're not, but it's hard to say. We're just more, and this is not something I'm pulling out of my ass. This is something that's been studied. We're generally more the type to just jump in, and they take a step back and they're like, okay, let's evaluate this. Let's think this through a little bit. Sometimes they think it through a little bit and it's rational, and sometimes they think it through way too much. And men are guilty of this too. But this is where I think,
dude, we need a shift. We're gonna get crucified.
Bro, I'm saying this. I'm not taking this out.
I love it.
This is where this equilibrium comes in, and this is
Yes.
where we both need each other.
Yes.
And if you're bitter and salty, and you're like, well, there's no good men out there. Oh, there's no good women out there. Well, congratulations. You'll never find anybody. But if you find someone compatible with you, we help complement each other.
Brother, that's such an important point that you just brought up. I don't want to dwell on it. But if somebody's mindset is, there's no good men out there, the man I want doesn't exist, that external focus on the world not being the way you want it to be will never create it in the way you want it to be.
No way.
Especially since it starts within.
Oh, no way.
If you look externally to fix something that really should fix internally, if your view of the world is that there are no good men, you need to go inside, change the view. You need to open up your mind. where are the good men? Ask a better question.
Or why have I not been finding them? Maybe there's something about me. Maybe my shit stinks a bit or a lot of it, and I am not attracting the right men, or I am not attracted to the right men. Maybe there's something internal, and it's the same thing for men.
Yeah,
men
totally.
say I know several guys that have been like, "Oh, there's no good women out there. All the good ones are taken." No, asshole. You are probably not suitable. You are probably not in the place in life you should be to attract that woman you want.
Dude, and men are lucky. We get to go younger. We can go significantly younger.
Dude, it's dope to be a guy. I mean, come on, just be like the old peeing in public. That's it. It's enough. I don't need any other reasons, man. I don't need any other reasons. College days, that's it. That's all it is. Yeah.
So sticking on the subject of driving force for male accomplishment or leveling up, etc., is women or sex. One thing that's obviously important throughout this conversation: being a man that women want. But when you're not that man yet, I love thinking of it in terms of a slow game, the slow play. You know, many women that have come into my life, they usually have served as some sort of motivation, where I think, you know, she doesn't see me yet, and you know what? I'm not going to falter for it, because there are so many great men out here. And now I'm competing not just with people in my age group and younger. I'm competing with every other age group out there as well. Anybody that somebody's at work with, somebody is, you know, seeing in wherever they're living, gym, apartments, whatever. So always conscious that, you know, if there's a woman that I really like and she's not seeing me, I know where I want to be in my life, and I'm so committed to being that person. I know that there's very few women that wouldn't be attracted to the man that I know I'm becoming. Mm-hmm. So to me, I just call it the slow play. If there's a woman that doesn't like me, I'm like, that's fine. I'm just going to slow play it, because ultimately it's not really for them. They serve as that motivator, because it's not about that chase. It's not about like trying to get the girl. It's really about becoming the guy, becoming that man, and not that instant gratification thing.
Yes, dude.
Because that's getting veered off in the road, and trying to stop and trying to enjoy the sunrise from like behind a hill, and really trying to get to the other side of the hill, see the sunrise correctly, something like that.
And yeah, the more I realized, it's so evident, dude. It's so evident. I'm building this podcast, and I'm trying to build my life, and I'm doing the real estate, and they're both relatively new things, and they're scary, and I constantly see things that I'm not doing, which then ties into what I wanted to talk about in creative avoidance, which is no matter how productive you are, it's very easy to take care of the more mundane tasks that may even be important, but aren't vital.
So define creative avoidance.
Well, creative avoidance is the concept that you're not necessarily doing nothing, but you are prioritizing less important tasks over tasks that are absolutely vital at the current moment.
So procrastination.
Procrastination, but more of a productive procrastination, so to speak, which could even be worse in actuality, because you're filling up that time. You don't want to not be busy, so you're forcing yourself to be busy, but potentially with things that really don't matter right now.
So this is where I'll push back for a moment.
Go for it.
I know that I'm not this perfect machine that never procrastinates, because I procrastinate all the time. It's been the thing. You know, I was reflecting on this the other day, how in college,
got the head rub. It's about to get intense.
Dude,
it's about to get intense.
Like, dude, in college, I was doing the thing where you were cramming before the test because you had been putting in the work consistently.
You were talking about this with Elena, actually.
Procrastinate, yeah.
Yeah, about cramming before it. But go on.
That whole procrastination thing is something that no one I know personally has really mastered. We're all working on it. It'll come up in different ways that we talked about a little bit before. You know, if we're really on point with our work, then we might not be very on point with our body. And just the place where our standard is lower, where we will accept things being just okay, or slipping a little bit and you're like, oh, I'll pick it up later, that's the thing that you're okay with slipping down or slipping away. But the other thing that you're doing well on, your finances, your work, or maybe it's your body or a relationship, if those are really going really well, that's where your standard is really high, because you don't want that to slip down, etc. So
that's an awesome way to put it, because you can't have it all. You can have a pretty much everything you want, but you can't have everything. You just can't. You can't have all the time in the world with your family if you're building an empire, if you're building a business. There's going to be some times where you don't have as much time as you would have liked to. But if you spend all your time with family, you'll have no money. You'll have nothing to provide, no means to provide for your family, and so there's that balance that needs to be put in place. But I loved what you said about knowing what's absolutely important, and then if other things slip away or fall in the cracks a bit, you're like, okay, that's not the end of the world. Right? That's what you were saying.
Yeah.
I would love to have you for another episode, though.
Sure, dude. After my ayahuasca retreat.
Damn, dude. When we talk about that.
Yeah, dude. It's one of the things that I'm gonna come out to the world, and would really love to speak about.
Perfect.
Consider really love to speak about to the world.
Consider it done. Okay, so let's wrap up. It has been an absolute pleasure, Stefan. Thank you, brother. Thank you for coming.
Brother.
Another episode of Soothing Semantics in the bag. I am your host, Rafi Pinsky. Stay tuned next Monday for another episode. Take care.